have found Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggles, stories, and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. My name is James Kademan, entrepreneur, author, speaker, and helpful coach to small business owners across the country. Today, I am excited because I have Rene Gibbs, the owner and CEO of Agape Senior Services. Rene, how are you doing today?
Good, thank you.
I am so excited to chat with you because just let the crowd knows, I had you in my class, business planning class, I don't know, 5 years ago, something like that?
2015.
Yeah, and at the time, you were you working for someone at the time, or you were your own independent?
I was working independently.
But it was your own thing, like it was you.
It was me.
You were the one, and it was in-home senior care.
In-home senior care.
Yep, and I remember we met for a coaching session. You were talking about growing your business, getting employees and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And here we are.
Here we are.
So let's start with what does Agape Senior Services of Madison do?
So we do in-home support for seniors in order to help them be safe, healthy, and independent.
Okay.
So sometimes a senior might not be able to stay 100% independent at home, but they're not ready for the next step, which would be assisted living, and there's this big gap there, and we come in and fill that gap through non-medical support.
Oh, nice. All right. And I guess let's start with how many employees you guys have.
I think we're bumping up against 40 employees.
40?
Yes.
40?
40.
Whoa. In how many years since you started that?
Since I hired my first employee to work 10 hours a week in 2018, in March of 2018, so about 3 years ago.
3 years.
Yes.
From zero essentially to 40.
40.
That's incredible. Wow. What do you attribute the growth to?
We really focus on making sure that the care professionals, we say care professionals, not caregivers, because it is a profession. Their profession is in caring for the senior client. So we really want to focus on attracting and retaining the best.
All right.
And so by doing that and really focusing our attention there, we've attracted the best.
Yeah.
We have a reputation in the healthcare community in this area as having the best. And so that becomes known, and people come, they stay, they tell other care professionals that are like-minded about our agency, and we have some really great folks on board right now.
That is cool. So how do people, seniors, or I imagine family of seniors, who hires you?
Typically, it's a spouse of a senior or adult children of seniors that notice maybe mom and dad they're missing their medicine, or maybe they're not quite the same. There's some memory issues or things that cause them concern. Then they'll reach out. We can do an assessment in their home or via Zoom. For free. It's a free consultation, and then start anywhere from 4 hours a day of care up to 24 hours a day. Some folks their objective is to age in place. They don't ever want to go anywhere else. They want to stay at home, and so we can make that happen. So we deal with a lot of adult children of the seniors.
Interesting. And you're Madison Metro, or I guess how far out do you guys go?
We go throughout Dane County at this point. There is some expansion developing beyond that, but right now we're Dane County. So Madison East Side, West Side, and then the outlying areas.
Gotcha. Now I remember in that class years ago, I had talked to the students about emotion and storytelling. Do you remember this?
Yes.
With the marketing and all that kind of stuff, saying you
Yes.
can't just say we offer this service.
Yes.
That you got to tell a story.
Yes.
And then when somebody says, let me tell you a story, no one's going to say, nah, I don't want to hear your story.
I don't want to hear your story, right?
So, and then I remember I had this class come up with their own story for their own thing. You came up with a story, and you had that class, just eyes were watering and stuff like this, and people are just like, I don't know what you're selling, I'm buying.
Right.
So can you tell us that story?
Yes.
All
so the reason that I started Agape Senior Services was because So in 2008, I got a call from my own mother. And when I got there, we realized that she had stage 4 stomach cancer.
Wow.
My dad was still working at the time. And so he needed someone to help her. They needed someone to help. She absolutely did not want to go to a hospital. She wanted to stay at home with her own husband of 42 years in her own beautiful home that she had decorated exactly the way she wanted. And so I took care of her. Now, I was not a caregiver, nor was I working in the field. But I learned a lot through that experience. And it was really beautiful to be able to see her live her last days at home, surrounded by her loved ones.
Yeah. And so how long did you take care of her?
For 3 years.
3 years. Wow.
Yeah. So she passed away peacefully at home. So I feel like the experience that I have is through the care professional's perspective, by having taken care of someone who transitioned from life from a long-term illness, and also from the family's perspective of how awkward that feels to have someone in your home, because we did bring on hospice at the end. So I know that feeling of, are you doing the right thing?
Right.
You know, and needing that support. So I feel like being able to come at it from that perspective has been really important in helping our families. One of the philosophies I have is that if I wouldn't hire someone to take care of my mom, I'm not going to hire them to take care of yours. And I think that because they know that I have that experience, that can be trusted.
That's fair. That's completely fair. It's so compelling that you have this business and you know both sides of it from actually experiencing it. Where a lot of business owners I run into from a customer service aspect, they think they know the customer side, but they've never been the customer in that field or that industry, or certainly from their own business.
Right.
And they believe that they have that knowledge, but it's speculation. Where you've actually experienced that and you're like, I know what you're going through.
Yes.
Because I've been through it.
Been through it.
And so that helps you cater from a customer service aspect, just from a service aspect in general. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Tell me, from a marketing point of view, do you use that story a lot, or do people know? Do clients know?
That's a great question. So I think that when we were smaller, then a lot of the clients I was able to share that story.
Sure.
And then as we've been growing, I feel like our story hasn't been communicated to all of the staff and the families the way we would like. But that's definitely something that's important to us, and we will be sharing that as well.
Yeah. It's got to be tough, though, because if you have 40 employees and you're talking roughly that number of clients, or I guess I don't know, employee for client, is it 1-to-1?
It usually runs about that number.
Okay.
It's a little bit less now because we have some folks that need a lot of hours, but roughly the same.
Sure.
One-on-one.
Got it. So, 40 people, that's tough to convey. And just given the clientele, there's somewhat of a rotation.
Right.
As they pass on and all that?
Yeah, some people recover.
Okay.
So we have folks that come out of the hospital, let's say, and they're like, okay, well, they need 24-hour care, but they don't want to go to a rehab. We have some of those folks that need care short-term. So it might last 2 weeks, 6 weeks, and then they're recovered, right?
All right?
And then they're like, okay, well, I don't need support anymore because I'm better from my surgery or whatever they had. So we have folks that have support for different reasons.
Okay.
So it could be somebody that has a decline in memory, and so they increase the care as time goes on.
Gotcha.
Or it could be somebody who's just short term and then they recover, and we wish them well.
All right. All right. How do you work with some hospice companies to transition or have them work with you?
So we have hospices and home health agencies that we partner with.
Okay.
So sometimes what happens, because we do non-medical again, sometimes what happens is when a person comes home from a hospital stay, typically, or rehab, they're discharged with home health. So home health is physical therapy, occupational therapy, and a nurse or RN, right? And they're there for about 4 to 8 weeks, depending. They'll do it an assessment, and then they're gone, right?
Right.
But we come in and we partner with them, so we do the support, the non-medical support. So let's say, for instance, a physical therapist comes in. They'll come in 3 times a week for 1 hour. They'll do the PT exercises with the client, and then when they're gone, we practice those exercises with them every day until the next time they come.
Sure.
Because sometimes it's not safe for them to do it alone, or sometimes they just won't do it unless somebody's there doing it with them.
I can tell you, my mom was the latter. She broke her wrist. She fell on the ice, and my sister luckily was there to just say, like, "Hey, Mom, they're not giving you these exercises just because. Like, there's a reason.
Right.
If you want to have the mobility of your wrist, you got to do it."
Yeah, it seems simple, but no, it can be painful, and they don't want to do it. But having somebody there to encourage that is always helpful.
Yeah.
So your sister was that person for your mom.
She was.
Good.
Yeah. It wasn't like she was in home care or something. She was in the same city and just would check up on her. It was one of those, I don't know, it's just like anybody else, right? You see a candy bar, you eat the candy bar. But if you do that routinely for a long time, there's going to be some repercussions from that you probably didn't decide when you ate that candy bar initially, whatever. So she's like, I don't want to do these wrist exercises. I want to, read a book or whatever it is. Whatever.
Yeah, I'll do it later.
Yeah, I'll do it later. Yeah, someday never comes. I want to talk about marketing with something like this.
Okay.
Because this seems to me similar to marketing life insurance or something like that, where it can be a tough conversation, right? For either the person to admit, I need help, or a spouse to admit, my spouse needs help, or something like that. It's going to be challenging. It's not like I'm just going to order a massage or something like that. This is a big decision, and it's probably sometimes hard for people to maybe come to that realization that they need that help. So how are you known? How do people know or find you?
That's a great question. So typically what happens is we've been getting all of our referrals word of mouth.
Wow,
so
that's cool.
So usually, because of the fact that you're inviting someone into your parents' home or into their home, that's a very vulnerable position to be in, and you don't want to just have a stranger come in. Most of them don't want anybody to come in, right? But if they get the referral of their neighbor or a friend, right, who's also gone through what they're going through, and they'll say, hey, we had a great experience, or, my mom and dad hired this particular company, they're great, why don't you call them? That's how it's been going, and I think because of they're trusting their neighbor or their friend or whatever more than they would trust the internet.
Gotcha.
It's hard for family members or a senior to just call. You're not going to just call somebody out of the yellow pages or something
it seems
like that.
A weird, like just Google. I always think of this when my wife was finding a place for daycare for my kid. I kept thinking, like, if I was the one that had to come up with the daycare provider, do you Google that? I don't even know where you find that.
Yeah.
And then, so my wife, through her network of people, right, they just know people that do daycare and stuff like this. She's like, do you want to meet the daycare person? And I kept thinking, well, I suppose I should, but you already trust them.
Yeah.
And I can't say no. I wouldn't be like, no, I don't like her, because I would have no reason to say no outside of saying, like, she's got too many butcher knives in the living room. That just seems creepy or something like that. It was just a weird thing. And it made me think, like, this person's taking care of your kid. You should probably know something. But I'm like, where do you start?
Right.
So I imagine with taking care of a senior, it's the same thing.
Right, and that's a great point. So even with daycare, people know what daycare is because it has, with senior care, a lot of times when folks they notice that they need care for mom, they don't even know that home care is a thing. Right?
Really? Okay.
Right. So
right.
So they just know, like, hey, mom and dad were doing fine, and last Christmas when we visited, and now we come this Christmas and we're noticing all these changes and memory issues, and the medications aren't being taken, or there's falls, or whatever the case is, right? And so what are we going to do? And they don't even realize what are their options because they've never been in that situation before, and it's not something that people always talk about.
Right.
it's just not a comfortable conversation to have, right? So I think that some of the communities that we've partnered with around Madison has been very helpful for that.
Okay.
Somebody's already living in independent living. They offer, supports for us, but also the word of mouth.
All right.
So people in that same age group, like, well, who did you use? Oh, we used Agape Services.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. So do you spend any money on advertising?
Yeah, I mean, we do.
I mean, you can totally tell me no.
Yeah,
That'd
no.
be-
We have a great website, right? And we have people. Usually, after what happens is people find out about us, and then they go to our website
Just to make sure you're
just to make
legit.
sure we're legit,
Sure.
get our testimonials, that sort of thing. So we have a great website. We do some advertising on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
We also have articles in Journey of Aging. I've personally written an article in Journey of Aging, done some advertising there. Madison West magazine. So we've done some advertising in terms of print and on the website, but we find that most of the time the folks that we're getting are through referrals. So we always appreciate the referrals. Of course.
Nice. That's very cool. I want to ask you about the juggling that you'll have to do, or that you probably have to do, and this is a forever issue, I imagine, with your industry, is you have employees and you have clients.
Yeah.
And there's always that balance of, we have these clients that match up with these employees, but there's some clients go away, employees go away, that it's probably rare that they match up line for line. So how do you manage that?
That's a great question. So I say, I've done the scheduling for some time. We have a great scheduler now. I say we're kind of a matchmaker for seniors.
Right.
So when we go in to do the assessment, well, I'll ask questions. So not just in terms of what they need, but what do they like? So sometimes people like someone who's more quiet because they like to read, they like to knit, right? They like someone, they want a male caregiver versus a female caregiver, or vice versa, if gender's an issue for them, if they have personal cares involved. What do they like? What kinds of interests do they have? Do they like boating? Do they like to knit or to read, or do they like to be active and go to yoga classes? So then once we have all of that information, then we can pair them up with somebody that we feel like would be not just a good fit in terms of skill set, but personality.
That didn't even dawn on me.
Yeah.
The personality thing, that could be a huge make or break
It's a
thing.
huge make or break. It's a huge make or break.
Wow. All right.
Because you might have somebody who's great, but somebody who's quiet, they're like, oh, they're too loud, they talk too much, right? Or somebody on the other side, they're very active and they like to talk all the time, and you have somebody who's very quiet, right? So having, that interest and then also personality match has been really helpful for us.
Wow. So that's a great segue, because then we can talk about hiring. Because I imagine hiring is a tough thing for everybody, but in senior services, it's got to be really tough.
Yes.
I imagine. So do you have a process to go through in regards to finding the right people?
Again, it's a lot on referral.
Oh, really? For employees as well?
From employees, we get some great referrals from employees, but we do advertise on MyCNA, Indeed. I think I don't do the hiring anymore, but is it Monster?
Could be, yeah.
Monster. There's a couple other sites where they could find us, but if they want to find us directly, it's 9547.axiscare.com, A-X-I-S,
Okay.
care.com, and that's where they would apply.
Gotcha. Okay.
Then there's someone that reviews their application. They set them up for an interview, and then they'll be passed through a second. If they pass that screening, they go through a second screening with our Director of Operations, Eric Williams, who makes that final decision.
All right. And have employees been a challenge? Or has it been smooth sailing?
Oh, with finding.
Keeping, making sure they do their job, just the whole employee ball of wax.
So we have a great training program, so that's been helpful. But I would say, yes, it's the ongoing challenge, I think, for every small business owner who has employees.
Small, big, medium.
Yes, yeah. So if you have employees, it's going to be a challenge for you, right? So I think that we have a pretty high standard of what we expect, even though we've created a culture where we want to attract and retain the best, right? But we also are very particular about who we're having in. So that means that they're showing up to work on time, that they don't call in sick, they don't have a lot of personal emergencies, that once they show up, that they're actually supporting the client and they're doing, they're engaged in what they're doing, they like what they're doing, and those types of issues. And that usually shows up within the first 30, 60, 90 days. And if they're not a good fit for us, we're completely honest, and usually they also recognize that. And so not everybody's going to be a good fit, right? Yeah, so we just continue to hire and retain the folks that are a good fit for us.
Okay. So I know in the IT world, they'll have an IT person and then they'll have jobs for the IT people.
Yeah.
And sometimes those jobs come and go, and so an IT person will be on the bench. They call it on the bench, where they get paid essentially, but they're not working because they're waiting for the next gig. So is that more or less how senior services works?
I have set it up that way,
Okay.
but it's funny, as soon as I have somebody on the bench, it's like somebody needs more care,
It just works.
it works. I
All
don't
right.
know how to explain it, but it's almost like as soon as we get somebody queued up, here comes hours for them. And it's
Wow.
not always like 100% exactly when, but I would say we've been pretty successful within, somebody wants to work full-time, we've been pretty successful at getting them full-time hours.
Nice.
Not always exactly Monday through Friday,
Sure.
but if they're flexible, like, hey, I'll work Sunday through Thursday if I get Saturday off or whatever, we've been very successful in that regard. So I don't have people on the bench very long.
Oh, that's cool. That's very cool.
If we do have to, put them on the side, we usually say, well, you could pick up hours, because we have a, in our system, they can pick up open shifts. So they can pick up hours while they're waiting. They can also get paid to do their in-the-know training while they're waiting.
Wow.
It's paid training
All right.
online.
Okay.
And so we give them opportunity to kind of get paid while they're waiting for their regular client to show up.
Nice. I want to talk about training.
Okay.
Because that's one of those things where I believe it would be tough to train in the real world. Because you have a person that needs care and trying to train somebody that is willing to give that care and how to give that care. But the person that needs care just seems like it would be cumbersome. But I don't know, is that how they do it, or is there some other way? You mentioned online.
So how we do it is when somebody's initially hired for the position, we have them go through what's called In the Know training.
Okay.
It's a national organization that trains CNAs and non-CNAs. There's over 300 courses. We have our courses lined up, so as soon as they get hired, we already have that set up and queued up so they can log in and start taking their courses. So whether they're a CNA or a non-CNA, whether they have 10 years of experience or a year of experience, they all go through the same training.
All right.
Yeah. So that's been, I think, something else that's kind of set us apart is that everybody starts in the same place, right?
So you have a foundation.
We have a foundation.
All right.
Yep. Everybody knows the same thing. We also have our training that they go through with our personal company, so an orientation that they get paid to go through, so learning our processes that are different than maybe somewhere else that they've worked, right?
All right.
That makes our company a little bit different, so they get paid for that. And then once they're all finished with those things, then they can be set up one-on-one with one of our team leads. So when we have our care professionals, right, that work one-on-one with the client, but then we also have team leads. So that somebody is looking for a little bit more advancement opportunity, pay increase, responsibilities.
Right.
They work, they do the training for the new care professionals. They're also kind of a mentor, so they have the new employee has someone that they can reach out to who's more experienced with the clients and with the organization itself. And then if somebody wants more advancement opportunities, we look at them for a care manager role. So the care managers oversee the care leads, and the care leads are assigned to care professionals that work directly with the clients.
Wow. So that, man, you're just good at segues here. I want to talk to you about the growth that you've had. So going essentially from 1 to 40 over the course of 3 years, and you're talking about a couple layers of management, that you had to figure that out essentially on the fly pretty quickly. So how did you figure out at what point do we need a manager for this group? And then you get big enough so you need a manager for that group that manages this group. So you add the layers and the people while still moving, right? You're working on the car while it's running, kind of thing.
Right. I also was doing direct care for a long, long time. So as we were growing, so I think that how you learn, I think, is a lot of times through feedback that you're getting from care professionals and clients.
Right.
So a lot of times how I've learned is usually but when I know I've reached a point of growth or where I need to make some changes is when things become uncomfortable in some sort of way. I can no longer do all of this myself, so I need support. I'll have feedback from the care professionals or the clients saying, hey, someone forgot to call me back and tell me da-da-da. Or I didn't get enough training, I don't feel well supported, something along those lines. Okay, I know that I need to add this layer because now I'm getting feedback, not once, twice, 3 times, saying I really would like to have some added support.
All right.
So then we look at options like, okay, what do we need to do to make that happen, right? And we've had some really great people that were willing to step up into those leadership positions. Super excited about the company and being able to lead and teach. And so it just kind of happened naturally. And then when those people, those people needed some more oversight, then that's when the care manager role developed.
Gotcha. All right.
And then we also have recently in January, I think I shared with you that we had Eric Williams, it's the director of operations. He came on board, and so he oversees all of the operations internally and externally.
Right. January this year.
January this year.
So you're talking a few months ago.
Yeah.
All
He's
right.
fantastic, though. He's very, very well known in the senior community. We're super excited to have him.
Nice. Now, that's a big decision to hire someone like that. So at what point did you say, look, I need help?
Well, I actually had told him before. I was so impressed with his resume and how well known he was in the community. I told him a few years ago, when I get to the point that I'm ready to have someone come and help me grow this business and be able to help more people in our community, I'm going to come and find you. And he said, okay, that sounds good. That was a few years ago. And so I did.
Nice.
I actually sought him out, and we had some conversations about how we could make that happen for him.
Wow.
And he was willing to come on board and help us, support and grow the organization. And so we're really excited about that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I'm going to hunt you down, buddy. And I did.
The senior community is pretty small. I mean, there's somewhere, right? So
is there? I have no idea. So just relatively speaking, there's only so many businesses? Or?
Well, I think people that serve in the senior community is like there's communities, independent living, assisted living. There's folks that support seniors in the community. So I'm just saying, like, the general community within the community is you kind of cross paths.
All right. So he's known.
He's known.
All right. That's super cool.
Yeah.
So I guess when you first started your business, was the intention to grow it to a certain number of employees, or was the intention to grow it beyond Dane County, like take over the world kind of thing? Or
Yeah. So that's a great question. So agape is Greek for unconditional love.
Oh, wow.
And I really felt led to be able to share my experience that I went through with my own mom. I didn't know what that was going to look like. I just knew I was going to share it with one family, and which I did, and then that family told another family. Quite honestly, I wasn't really thinking that I was going to start a business per se. I just was helping a family, and then I that's how I started. And then I grew beyond myself. So I hired my first employee in 2018. And I had to go through the legal process of doing that. And then it just kept growing from there. And so we've just really been fortunate in that way.
Nice. So let's talk about you hiring your first employee, because that's always a big, a business owner, all of a sudden you're like, it's time to grow a team, and you've never done it before.
Right.
And now you got to find this person. And now it's even another layer of complexity. because this is someone that's going to be taking care of someone. It's not like they're flipping burgers or something like that. Or if they drop one on the floor, we can get another one. It's not a big deal.
Right.
But if you're like, hey, I forgot to give Grandpa his meds. Now he's on the floor. You don't want that.
Right.
So how do you, just tell me, how did you figure out, one, you needed them, two, how do you find them? And at that point, you probably didn't really have a training plan.
I did not. No, I did it all myself, just pouring myself into them. Whatever I knew about doing senior care, I just poured myself into them individually, and that's how we grew. Actually, that first employee is still with us.
Really?
Yeah, she's still with
awesome.
us. Yeah, so, I guess I probably won't say her name, but she's still with us after 3 years. She's doing phenomenally. My second employee that I hired right after her is still with us.
That's incredible.
And I think part of it was that we're so small that we worked so closely together, right? And so that was pretty exciting for them to be able to work all of us together to watch the company grow, and which means that we're able to support more people, right?
Yeah.
So I remember I didn't know what I was doing when it came to like hiring an employee. I had zero idea, nor are there a lot of resources that say like, okay, follow this checklist. This is exactly what you need to do. You need to find a payroll company. You need to go out and find work comp, and you need to do. There's no, not that I've been able to find. There's no list of everything that you are supposed to do. It's kind of like just trying to find the information, and then when you find the information, somebody else, you'll ask questions, and somebody else will tell you something else. But I remember having a conversation with our work comp, and they said, okay, well, how much work comp do you need? I mean, how much are you going to make this year? And I said, I hired her 10 hours a week. I was like, I have no idea, right?
Right.
Well, the lowest they went is $30,000. So that's, you have to put that in place. And so these are all learning experiences. And the reason I knew I needed work comp is because I talked to the people at the payroll company who gave me advice about, okay, you need this and this and this. You talk to coaches like yourself who, like before I even started this process, that were like giving me scenarios about, what is that going to look like when you have marketing, how much is that going to cost? And we ran through some of those scenarios. And when you get to the point where you get an employee, right. Which eventually I did, then this is what you're going to be looking at. So it all kind of just came together, but I didn't always need the information right when I had it. But eventually I did need that information.
Right.
I think people in this community are great about sharing information as well.
Oh, yeah.
So WIBIC is one that I've gotten a lot of information from, where I met you.
Yeah.
SCORE is another one, great information. Networking groups are great about sharing information.
Yeah, I always tell people there's no shortage of information. There may be some that's tough to find, but there's probably more the apprehension to ask for help or to even know what questions to ask.
Right.
So that's probably, you don't know what you don't know, even maybe a step beyond that. I don't know that I should even ask about this.
Right, you don't even know that that's exactly right. You don't know to even ask that question, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a sister that's got her own business, and she was moving it from her house to an office, and she asked, she was more or less just asking, what do I need to know? And I asked her one about, you got to tell your insurance company, and she's like, insurance company? I'm like, well, do you have business insurance? She's, what's business insurance? I was like, whoa, time out. And then we talked about LLC, and she's like, what's an LLC? I'm like, these are people coming to your house. It was a yoga thing. She had set up whatever. And she's cool now, but it was stuff that she didn't know. She just started in her house, been going for years, and it was all good until, and I'm like, you were one slip on the fall away by a client from risking your house or your livelihood. You got to have some protections in there.
Right.
And she had no idea.
Right.
And I thought, at first I was like, how could you not know this? But then I thought, well, what if I started a yoga studio and I didn't know anything about business? I wasn't a reader or something like that.
Yeah.
No one tells you, hey, by the way, if someone slips and falls and you don't have your LLC set up, you don't have business insurance, you are so open to any liability claims that it's dangerous, extremely dangerous. So no one just jumps out and says that. So.
And don't you think sometimes people are, when they're doing something they really love, like they're taking care of seniors or they're doing yoga, they're not thinking about it from the business perspective.
Totally.
They're just doing what they love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I'm just helping people. That's
all. That's it. Yeah, there's no ill intent at all.
Yeah.
It was just completely, just didn't know. Just didn't know, yeah. It was one of those things where I actually, from that, ended up creating that checklist, the business startup checklist that I have.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
That's where that came from.
Yes.
Because I was talking to her on the phone, and I'm like, hold on. Just give me a couple hours. I'll send you this thing. You probably have a lot of it, but just go through it. And
that's so helpful, too.
Yeah.
It's really helpful, James.
It just gives her a starting point.
Yeah.
And things like have insurance. It's really not that much money, and you can keep your house if somebody slips on the ice.
That's right.
Or, just stuff like that. So it's interesting. I want to talk about the employee, not so much acquisition, but keeping them. Because when I see resumes come in for, we have calls on call to answering service. When I see resumes come in for people to answer phones. On a lot of those resumes, those people have worked at senior care places of some kind. And when I look at those resumes, a lot of the times, they didn't stick around those places very long. And it's routine enough, or it's common enough, that it just makes me wonder what's going on there. My first thought is it's a tough job. So maybe they thought it was cool. They got in there and they said, this isn't as cool as I was hoping. So can you just talk about that, the retention, employee retention?
So I think a person has a heart for serving or they don't.
Okay.
Right. So that's to start. So I've had folks come in that have a lot of experience with caregiving, but we get them in and they don't really have a heart for serving. They may have done it for a long time, but that's not their heart, at least not anymore.
All right.
But then you have some folks that are just really have a heart for serving. They're just born that way, right? They just love serving people in any capacity.
Yeah.
Can I get you a pillow? Can I put your foot up? Can I get you something to eat? Like, that's just their heart, right?
Sure.
So those people, I don't think necessarily are doing it for the money, but we all know that we all have bills.
Right.
And so one of the things that we've done is we've structured it in such a way that we keep a close eye on what our competitors are paying, and then we've increased that by $2 to $4 an hour.
Wow.
So we can make sure, again, that we can attract and retain the best. We also pay 100% of dental and vision. So we have a really, really great dental and vision plan, and the employer pays 100% part-time or full-time.
Wow.
100%. Yeah. So that's been very attractive to some folks. If they're working part-time, again, or full-time, that they have that automatically paid for them.
Yeah. It's interesting. I interviewed a guy in this podcast. Oh, man, I'm going to call it 3-4 months ago, something like that. And he had a really cool software that was meant to train employees, with the idea being that employees are not going to stick around. So you have to improve your training program. It's clever software, super cool, but I just kept thinking to myself, wouldn't it be easier to retain? And that said, it's tough. It's tough to retain employees. Loyalty is rare.
Right.
Rare. So I get it, but in a senior setting, I can imagine if an employee wants to leave and a senior's been with this person for a long time, they know them.
They don't usually. I'm just going to be honest. Like what? So for us, my experience has been so far that people that come, if the 90 days, if they stay with us 90 days, James, they're not going anywhere.
Wow.
Most of the time, unless like I've had a couple people, life circumstances went in tears, right, because of life, but that's only been a couple of times. Everybody else that I've had that has worked with us longer than 90 days, they don't go anywhere. They will retire with our company. I can swear it, right?
Well, that's impressive.
Thank you. And I think the people that kind of come and try us out, you know what I mean? Because it's, it's pretty transient business, like you said. So the first 90 days, they're really trying us out. We're trying them out too.
All right.
And so if we're not a good fit for them, they usually just go somewhere else. Not that they're fired or quit, but they just kind of transition themselves out. But the people that have made it past that 90 days, usually they fall in love with their clients, right? They fall in love with the culture, or they fall in love with, it's not just about money, but it's part of life. Right. So we try to make the whole thing, the whole experience, agreeable to them.
Okay.
The other thing I think that folks like, that if they've been with us longer than 90 days, is we give time freedom. So we give them a contact sheet with all of the care professionals, and then we build, help facilitate that relationship between them. So they don't have to call us and ask us for a day off.
Oh.
They find coverage. They email the office. They say, so-and-so Joe's going to be taking my shift on Tuesday. We don't need to know why. We're all adults here.
Yeah.
If you want to stay home and take a bath, I don't care. If you have something more important, you don't have to share that. They just take the time off. They want to go on vacation, if they want time off. And I think that people who, initially it seems kind of awkward for folks, right? So they're not really sure. But people who have been with us for a long time love it.
Yeah, I guess we do something similar at Calls on Call. We're just like, as long as the crew is cool,
Yeah.
I'm cool.
Right, right.
It's just
Yeah.
take care of it, yeah.
And they love that autonomy.
Yeah, it's a trust.
Yeah, it creates time freedom for them. You know, they don't have to say, oh, can I have my daughter's birthday off? No, you take the time off. You just find somebody, a colleague to work for you, and you just take your time off.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you about the growth that you've had, because 3 years, 40 employees, my math, that tells me that that's one and a quarter employees every month that you're adding.
It's been in spurts. It's been in spurts.
So I just want to tell me, how did that work? Because I don't know if that's common in the senior services world, but that seems like crazy growth to me.
Yeah. It's definitely an industry that needs a lot of support. Like our seniors need a lot of support. So I don't know what other companies are doing in terms of growth. I know that it's been crazy trying for us to keep up with the growth and making sure that we have quality care professionals and not compromising on that.
Okay.
Just for growth, right? So the question was...
So how did you manage it?
So that's not easily.
Okay. This is the authentic part.
Because I remember when I had my first employees, I'm going to be honest, like I wasn't 100% sure if they were going to show up, because some of our shifts start at 5 a.m. and I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go. This is how crazy it is. I wanted to make sure, because I didn't have the system in place that we have now to make sure that people are where they need to be. But I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning just in case they got a flat tire or something happened and they weren't able to make it, because the folks that we're serving are one-on-one. They're vulnerable, right? So we have to make sure that the people that we have in the homes are safe people. They're going to come, they're going to show up on time, they're going to do an excellent job when they get there, that they're safe individuals that they were putting with mom and dad. So as the growth happens, being able to keep eyes on all of those folks, again, going back to the team leads, right? I could keep eyes on 5, but I can't.
40 would be tough.
40's a little tough, right? So then we have, Eric that's on board with us. We have our team managers. We have our team leads. So that has been really helpful, because they also can be aware of what's going on in the field.
Gotcha. That's cool. That's very cool. We don't have a ton of time left, so I'm just going to ask you a few basic questions, right? What have been some of the biggest challenges that you've had to deal with that you did not anticipate?
I did not anticipate that hiring great employees, care professionals, was going to be as big of a challenge as it is.
Oh yeah,
and I think you told me that, and I was like, no, I know plenty of people. I've been working in this industry for a long time. I know plenty of people. They'll be great. It'll be fine. It'll be easy for me. Easy. And I could not have been more wrong. So making sure that you get quality people is super important.
Yeah, I would love to say I never made that mistake. I did.
I think also managing the finances was also really important and more challenging than I thought it was going to be. I do pretty well personally, so I thought it would just be kind of like that, but it's not exactly. But it's important. Making sure that you have the cash flow. So once you're talking about payroll, when it was just me, right? When you're talking about payroll and making sure all the insurances are paid and the office is paid and all of that, that pressure of making sure that you're stewarding that responsibility well, and being able to pour it into growth, because there's 40 people that are counting on you to make sure that you make those decisions.
That's their livelihood.
That's right.
That they're banking on you.
That's right.
So yeah, that better be managed well.
That's right. That's right. So I think that's been surprising for me too, that it's been as challenging as it's been.
Yeah. I was just talking to a guy a couple hours ago, actually, that I was just like, hey, what do you do? Whatever. He's a mechanic, and he's planning on leaving his job because they messed up his paycheck one time. And they weren't, I guess that it happens, but the problem was, or the main problem, was that they were not quick to fix it. He pointed out the problem, and they're like, next paycheck will fix it. I'm like, no. No, you fix that now.
Right.
Kind of thing. That is not a later kind of thing. That's a right now kind of thing. You got to take care of your people. That's, yeah. Oof,
and I think,
huge.
again, coming from the perspective of the care professional, because I took care of my mom, and then I worked independently, that I was looking at it like, hey, if I don't pay them on time exactly when I told them I was going to pay them, I would have no employees. They wouldn't trust me anymore.
Right. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a promise that's being made between the employee and you, and anytime that you start to break that promise, you're essentially giving them permission to break that promise. Good.
Yep, and that means no matter what. So that's the big challenge, right? When you have a small business, is you don't have this just like ton of money sitting in the wings, making sure that you have that money ready. You have to steward that well.
Yeah.
And life happens in the meantime.
Yeah.
So things happen in the business. There's, you got an audit from work comp because you've had an increase, yay, but now you owe more money.
Right.
Boo, right? So those are the things that happen in business, and you still have to make sure that no matter what, your employees are paid.
Yep.
And some people have like lines of credit, things like that. It's a little bit challenging in the beginning because banks don't always want to do business with you when you're new.
Yeah.
So they want to see a track record for 2 to 3 years, and then they want to see your numbers.
Yeah.
But what do you do between 0 and 3?
Yeah, it's chicken egg scenario.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know that story.
So.
All in good fun. Well, Renee, thank you so much for being on the show. This is fun.
Thank you.
I am proud of you.
Thank you. I'm proud of you, too.
40 employees in 3 years? Oh, my gosh, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
That's super cool. It's incredible.
Thank you.
And I imagine when I interview you again in a few years, you'll be just taking over the world with senior services.
That would be awesome.
You got a good thing going.
Thank you.
And people seem to be getting older, and there's more of them. So there's a market.
There's a market.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. You guys have found Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes. I can't remember what I'm supposed to say here. Authentic Business Adventures is brought to you by Calls on Call, offering call answering services for businesses all over the country. Can be found at callsoncall.com, as well as Draw In Customers Business Coaching, offering business coaching services for businesses looking for growth. And, of course, the Bold Business Book, a book for the entrepreneur in all of us, available wherever fine books are sold. We'd like to thank you, our wonderful listeners and watchers. And Renee, where can people find Agape Senior Services?
They can call us at 608-841-1004 or at seniorservicesmadison.com.
Seniorservicesmadison.com. Well,
Seniorservicesmadison.com.
That's the best domain in the world right there. I love it. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week. I want you to stay awesome. And if you do nothing else, enjoy your business.
Thank you.
That's all there is to it.